Good morning. You're now listening to Kingston Community Radio on FM 92.5 and AM 920 WGHQ, Kingston, New York. This programming is brought to you by our listeners and corporate underwriters who are interested in presenting local community radio. The opinions expressed on this program do not represent those of Pamel Broadcasting or Kingston Community Radio. Listeners are encouraged to send in $10 per month to help bring this program to you. Mail your contributions to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. For more information or to donate online, visit our website at mykcr.org. And good morning, this is Dan Gatis, and thank you for tuning in to A Medical Monday with Dr. Ed Aleo today. And it's Monday, July 26th, and 64 degrees here in uptown Kingston. A little bit of weather and forecast today. Some localities of dense fog this morning, so be careful driving through. Various localities may have quite a lot of fog. And otherwise partly cloudy with a high of 89 today. Tonight, clear skies, low of 61. And Tuesday, sunny along with a few afternoon clouds, a high of 89. Tuesday night, 40% chance of a thunderstorm. In the evening, with some showers overnight. And we'll be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
Azalea is my world. When I heard that she had a tumor, everything just became dark. When I came to St. Jude, I started to get back some light in my life.
On top of first-class, best care, you will never receive a bill so that you can focus on this child. The only thing we had to worry about was just keeping Azalea comfortable. St. Jude saved her life, and it saved us as a family.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Hey everybody, Rachel Ray here. Nothing brings a bigger smile to my face than cooking up a big meal for the whole family and lots of friends. But there's not enough room at my table for the 17 million kids in our country who struggle with hunger. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks collects surplus food to give hope to hungry kids. But they can't do it without your help. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Cameron Rylance from Kingston, and I support Kingston Community Radio because it's informative.
And we're back. You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ, 920 on your AM dial, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. Every day, 7 to 9 a.m., weekdays. And your call-in number is 331-9255, 331-9255. And let's get to the on-air studio and welcome Dr. Ed Aleo for this segment of Medical Monday. Welcome.
Good morning, Dan. Glad to be here again. How are you all doing?
Absolutely good.
Well, so we have a good day coming today, right?
It's a good day coming today, yeah. Maybe some fog here and there. You know, you never know around here. Sometimes it's halfway up the mountain. Sometimes it's down in the lowlands. But just local fog around here. And then it'll clear up and probably before we go off air at 9. Usually burns off pretty quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a nice day today.
Absolutely.
Anyhow, glad to be back. It's been a while. Since I was here last time, as I told you before, Dan, I was on staff at the Benedictine and Kingston Hospitals, which is now the Health Alliance Hospital. And now I'm an emeritus. When I started, I was one of the younger guys. Now I'm one of the older guys. But interestingly enough, I think a couple of days before I came in last time, I had a minor procedure, elective minor procedure. And like every procedure, you can never tell that there's always a chance that something can happen. Well, in my case, I had this procedure. Everything went well, I went home, and 24 hours later, ended up in the emergency room.
No kidding,
Yeah.
really. And it was a result of the procedure?
A result of the procedure.
Really? Yeah.
It's a faux pas. There's always a possibility for something to happen in the most minor procedure. So we have to be careful of that. So I went to the hospital, and of course I was admitted. Thinking I was going to be there, emergency room, in and out, I ended up in the hospital for 5 days.
5 days?
Nobody's in the hospital for 5 days anymore, Dan.
This is true. I mean, even when you go and have a baby, you're out in 2.
Right. I felt like I was having a baby.
Yeah, maybe so. Absolutely. What happened?
Well, after the procedure, there was some bleeding, and which I expected, but it was more than expected. My point is that you never know what's going to happen. That's why you always have to take care. So when physicians say to us, we're going to have a procedure, and there's always a risk. There is always a risk.
We sign off on them usually.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And 99% of the time, nothing happens.
Absolutely.
Mine wasn't deadly. It was just painful. Mm-hmm. And I made out okay. As a result, I had to have a second procedure to see what was happening, where the bleeding was coming from, and it took care of it, and it was really, really well done. The point I'm trying to make, though, is when I was in the hospital, I was in the Kingston Hospital on Broadway. I've been in that hospital so many times over the years, and one of the interesting things is I've been around for a while, so even yet today, they recognize me, even though I don't go in the hospital. So that was nice, of course. But what I did find, and which took me by surprise, and as you know, about a month or so ago, the Westchester Memorial Center, which is WMC Health Center, that purchased or runs the Health Alliance hospitals of Kingston and Benedictine.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they're in Westchester. And like other conglomerates, if you will, or equity groups. Equity groups are, to my knowledge anyhow, are money people who invest in buying businesses.
Yep,
So
exactly.
Westchester
Sure.
is a conglomerate, very wealthy, nice hospital. But what happens from my vantage point, and of course I'm very limited in my knowledge base, what they did is they're trying to send all the important things to Westchester. That's okay. As a result, the staff at the hospital was outstanding.
At
Nurses
Broadway
were great,
campus.
and Broadway campus.
Yes, I have found that for 2 reasons for my family for the last couple of years. When we needed them, boy, were they incredibly in touch, and extraordinarily open-ended when it came to exactly what we needed to do, what needed to be done, and what your options were. Everything was very, very compassionate.
Well,
and accurate.
And you're correct.
Yeah.
Well, a month ago or so, Westchester, with all their foresight, terminated about 45 people from that hospital.
We do know
including, it was in the paper, and I read all that.
Yeah.
Including professional staff, nursing staff, support staff, and even people who were in maintenance. The thing that got my attention were twofold. One, staff was outstanding. The physicians on staff, the hospitalists, outstanding. Couldn't be more attentive. The nursing staff was there when you needed them. My neighbor next to me, I was in a room with 2 people, and this fellow was more sick than I, and they were there all the time taking care of him. Mm-hmm. I was impressed. But what I wasn't impressed was with the appearance of the hospital. Mm-hmm. Over the weekend, and I say this, partly to address the lack of appreciation of who we are in Kingston by Westchester. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm speaking out of school here, but I'm a patient. I'm a community member. I'm
Every
a citizen.
patient speaks out of school.
Yeah.
In a way, yes.
Over the weekend, Dan, there wasn't one maintenance person to come into the room to clean up.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff stacked up, garbage. You know, it wasn't like New York City where it stacks up outside, but they didn't come through. No dusting, no cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the little stands that hold your medicine, like a tripod type thing, the bottom was rusty. And I say this as an indictment, if you will, of Westchester, not of Kingston.
I have a feeling that I understand what you mean, because that directive for losing staff and cutting it in preparation for consolidating the two hospitals was administrative, you know, and it was an administrative decision that wasn't made by Health Alliance,
Right.
as we understand it.
It wasn't made by Health Alliance. It was made by Westchester and the CEO of Westchester. And I had his name and I forgot it. I think it's Israel or Isaac, or I can't remember. But in looking at their books, you know, which is online, this fellow makes a lot of money, like many CEOs. They talk about GM making millions of dollars. This fellow makes millions of dollars. But the cost savings is at the expense of the patients and overworking the staff. The staff are doing double duty, the nursing staff. And I was quite disappointed in that aspect, but not the treatment.
Right.
The hospital still hummed along.
They still got it together. They still got it done.
Yeah.
No, that's a Kingston thing. You get it done.
Yeah. So that was
Yeah.
my experience, and I think that their cost cutting, from an administrative point of view, was ill-conceived. We don't, with the monies that Westchester has, if you look at their books, it's online. No need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they took essential staff. They didn't take people that were retiring, not replacing them. They just took out 45, 42 people.
I can see that 40 people would make a huge difference with a facility like Kingston Hospital and Mary's Avenue.
Yeah.
I can see that would make a huge difference.
The building project on Mary's Avenue is going to be outstanding. Another interesting thing in the state of New York this time, you know, back, 15 years ago or so, maybe a little longer, they put $25 million into Kingston Hospital emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved it out of Benedictine. So we have an emergency room in Kingston Hospital. And now we're doing the opposite. We're putting in probably $200 million back into
a new emergency room at Mary's Avenue.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
well, I guess, you know, it's easier than, of course, a building while you're working. It's easier than building while you're working, like at the Kingston Hospital. So, I mean, they have the facilities in place at Kingston Hospital, and it's easier to use the empty space over at Mary's Avenue and
Mary's Avenue has more space, more land space.
Yeah,
I get that. It's just interesting that we don't have foresight. We take out emergency room at Benedictine, we put it in Kingston, and then years later, because Westchester's there, this is a good move, I think, we move it back to Benedictine. Mm-hmm. You know, it'd be like us moving one part of our house into another house next door and moving it back again. You know, our kitchen.
Yes.
That's pretty simplified. I'm sorry, that was dumb. Anyhow, I just thought I should share that with you, Dan.
That's very insightful, because you're coming in and, of course, experiencing the environment that everybody experiences if they go into the emergency room and are admitted to Health Alliance. You're seeing it in the eyes of the medical field, which is very, very significant.
Well, you know, and even my surgeon showed up twice to see me, and that's nice. That doesn't always happen. We have hospitalists. I remember years and years ago when we were going to start the hospitalists, and I was at a medical staff meeting, and there was a discussion about, you know, if you're 55 and above, you don't have to take call. Call is when you have patients, and your patients in the hospital, you don't have to go in. Other people will cover for you. 55 is pretty young,
Mm-hmm. It is.
And now with the the buying, where people are no longer in private practice, their practices are purchased and repurchased by groups like Westchester, and they are no longer going to the hospital. I think that's an error in judgment nationally, not just here.
It's a shame. MAHV, I know a lot of the doctors there that are primary care physicians do visit any of their patients that go to, that are, in the hospital overnight. And I know that does occur. But it is rare.
Yeah, there are physicians who do that. And
yeah.
We need to applaud them.
Absolutely.
It's a situation where as good as the hospitalists are, and they are good, they don't know you.
They don't know you. And, in firsthand experience, I can remember seeing my late wife's primary care physician come in and visit us. And they're like family. We know each other. We've lived with, the experiences and the ups and downs of health. And you know them very, very well. They're like part of your family. And when it's in a critical time, it's a crisis time, when you're in a hospital, it's not a walk in the park. It's a very, very, it's a crisis time. And to see somebody to diffuse and just it's very healing. It's very healing to see your primary care doctor in the hospital during a crisis.
It's comforting.
Yes.
Plus, his knowledge base is very, significant. And whereas the hospitals are in a catch-up situation.
That's right.
And the patients aren't always able to give the history. Mm-hmm. The fellow next to me, for example, was coincidentally very hard of hearing, which is my field, hearing. And, so he had a hard time communicating with the hospitalist. And one physician who did come in, who wasn't a hospitalist, was talking to the patient, and the patient did not. He was also not feeling well, wasn't able to give the information, and it was a little confusing on what to do.
The hospitalist wasn't aware of his hearing situation.
Well, it wasn't so much his hearing situation. Mm-hmm. It was that fact, and everybody's in a time frame to move along and do other things. Not that they did that with him. Don't get me wrong, but this wasn't a hospital; so it was a different physician. This was a specialist, mm-hmm. And but the person could communicate something as simple as this. This is a good one. There's a sheet. There's a sheet between us, and this fellow had trouble swallowing, so they would take his medicine and crush it, break it all up, and put it in applesauce. Mm-hmm. So a nurse came in. She said, "Okay, Sam," that was not his name. We're going to give you your medicine, and you can drink this, and it won't taste as bad if you bite down on it. And he goes, "Oh, okay." So I said, "Nurse." And she was new. She just came in off shift, and she hadn't seen him before. I said, "All of his medicine gets crushed." She goes, "Oh, okay." So I was his advocate for a moment.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cute. He would have made out okay anyhow.
Maybe so, yeah. But that was a nice. That was a very, very nice gesture. I think any of us would have done it if we had the opportunity, right?
What's that?
I didn't think any of us would have done it if we had the opportunity.
Sure.
Just to give the advice.
Sure. So anyhow, I'm better, thank you. Everything worked out well. It was an interesting observation on my part.
You look great today.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
See that? Anyhow, today we're going to have some discussion on drug and alcohol, again, abuse. But this time we're going to take a little different tack. We're going to talk a little bit about rehab, but we're going to talk more about AA and NA. And I think that's important because we don't, as we know, there aren't that many beds available rehab-wise, Dan. So people need to be doing something to move them along with their situation. So we're going to have some people come in who are in NA and AA. And I want you to help me remember something. Mm-hmm. I also think we should mention Al-Anon, which is the support group. I don't know if it calls, because I'm not really versed on this too well, Dan. It's like a support group for family members or significant others who have partners or family who have drug or alcohol problems.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes they get left out, and they're in a crisis at times.
Just as much.
Yeah.
Just as much. And that Al-Anon and the support system for bringing the family back along with it can be quite complex, could be quite involved. So and the whole family does need to be a part of it.
So that's going to be your job to remind me about the Al-Anon.
Al-Anon, okay.
If you would, please.
I'll kick it in somewhere along the way when our guest is here.
Yeah. And then the second one is I have a colleague, Dr. Maureen Lynch, coming in. She's an audiologist here in the area, working with an ear, nose, and throat physician. And so she's going to talk about hearing loss in children and some of the problems that they experience. So it should be interesting. Another aside, over the weekend, twice over the weekend, I run into these people who are dizzy, which is one of my interests. And most dizzy people, I think, everybody thinks that any episode is called dizziness. Dizziness is kind of a general term, and you have to kind of weed it down to, is it from your ear, or is it from your balance system in the back of your head, which is your brain, which is your cerebellum? That's back here, in the back of your head. And the difference between the two is your ear, when it makes you dizzy, you have a sensation of falling one side or the other, or you spin around, or the room spins around. That's vertigo. Lightheadedness, which people call dizziness, is different. That can be from your blood pressure. People who get up quickly, their blood pressure changes, get lightheaded. It also could be from older people who have problems where blood supply is limited, and it's a neurological, more of a central thing, not neurological, more of a central thing. And they're lightheaded when they bend over and stuff like that.
Wow, so
or get up. There's a difference between the two.
Obvious, yeah, and the reason for them, you can tell by what you're saying that the reason for them are hugely different.
Right, and there's many reasons why people have both. They go from benign tumors called an acoustic neuroma to vestibular neuritis or a virus, or even this is the vertigo one, or it could be a little bit of metabolic, where their diets aren't the best. You got to remember, like every place else in your body, there's a artery that feeds the organ, and in your ear and in the semicircular canals, which are really tiny, your ear cochlea is about that big inside your head. It's not a big thing; it's very small, like the
He's showing us the end of a pen.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. You can't see that, folks.
Right.
That's what I was doing. I was trying to show Dan. So there's a mitral artery that serves that. So if there's a metabolic problem or a lack or something in the blood supply that affects the nutrients, if you will, people become vertiginous. And the other one is alcohol. If somebody overdrinks, you're in college or otherwise, two things happen. You have sedated your brain back here, but you also have affected your ear, your vestibular system. So people who are drunk, if you will, inebriated, they have a spinning sensation, I'm sure you never experienced it, Dan. But
I have no idea why I would want to, nail two pegs down on the floor and lay there and hold on for dear life, right?
Right. But
I remember that in my 20s.
Yeah, everybody.
I'll be honest.
And then there's a relationship between your ear and your stomach.
Yeah.
And that's why and the other one is your eye. So your stomach, your eye, and your ears are all related. So what happens is, people who are dizzy from alcohol, for example, they drink too much, they close their eyes. Big mistake. As soon as you close your eyes, you start to whip around faster. And then there's a nerve that goes to your stomach called the vagus nerve. And you have a vagal response, which means you vomit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happens when
this is
drink
acute.
too much.
This is acute.
This is acute for the moment.
Acute alcohol
And of
consumption.
course, nobody will keep their eyes open because that seems counterproductive.
Yeah,
but
it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing with seasickness.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly the same thing. The best thing to do for somebody who's feeling seasick on a boat is to give them the steering wheel.
Give them what?
Give them the steering wheel. That allows them to have control over the horizon and what your reference point is.
Right.
The worst thing to do is go down in the cabin and sit there with your eyes closed, just like you're saying.
That's exactly same idea.
Mm-hmm.
So you stay upright three ways, and then we'll finish up on this. Your eyes, your ears, and your proprioceptive.
Fascinating.
And your cerebellar. So if you're in a boat, you lose your proprioception because you're floating around. So that takes away that. You don't know where you are in space, so to speak.
Exactly.
And the other one is your eyes. So if the same thing happens. If your balance is off because of the boat moving, that takes one thing away. You close your eyes, and again, the same thing happens. You get sick.
It makes it even more extreme.
Yeah. So that's an ear thing also, by the way.
Very
That's
interesting,
your ear.
yes. Mm-hmm.
That's your best ear. So you have a weak ear to start. Close your eyes, you're in trouble. You have a weak ear to start, get on a boat, and lose your proprioception. Same thing happens, as if you were drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you go fishing on a boat, I don't know if you know this or not, once you charter your way off the dock, they don't go back.
You were on the boat.
You're on. And so you just have to tough it out.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's my story on dizziness. So our guest should be coming here any second.
Good. I can. Let's do an early break. It's almost at the bottom of the hour right now. We can take an early break, and by that time, maybe our guest will be here. Thank you, Dr. Ed Aleo, and you are listening to Medical Mondays, and this is WGHQ AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. Weather and forecast for Kingston and the surrounding areas today. Some localities of dense fog this morning, otherwise partly cloudy with a high of 89. Tonight, clear skies, a low of 61. And Tuesday, sunny along with a few afternoon clouds with a high of 89. And Tuesday night, 40% chance of a thunderstorm. In the evening with some showers overnight, a low of 60. And we will be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
Azalea is my world.
Get ready to go with Central Hudson on an epic adventure at the Dutchess County Fair, August 24th through the 29th. Visit us at our main booth in Building C and say howdy to Zoltar the Fortune Teller, who will predict your energy future. Then pop over to Central Hudson's booth at K29 to score 10 LEDs plus a desk lamp for only $10. See you in Rhinebeck at booth C30 and K29. Electrical fires can be caused by overloaded circuits or outlets, frayed wires, faulty appliances, or deficient cords. This is Central Hudson reminding you, in the event of an electrical fire, call the fire department and let them know it's an electrical fire. Never use water to put out the flames of an electrical fire, as that may cause serious shock. And use only an approved fire extinguisher. If possible to do so safely, shut off the main breaker. Your safety matters.
Hi, this is Cameron Rylance from Kingston, and I support Kingston Community Radio because it's informative.
And thank you for being with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, 7 to 9 a.m. every weekday. Kingston Community Radio on AM 920 and 92.5 FM and streaming online at mykcr.org. 331-9255 is your call-in number, 331-9255. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Central Hudson. Thank you for your underwriting. Let's get back to the on-air studio with Dr. Ed Aleo and his new guests. Welcome back.
Hi there, thanks. Well, my guests have arrived. I have Pat here. Say hi, Pat.
Hi, Pat. Yeah, very good.
And Mike Enoch was here before. Mike?
Good morning, everybody. Michael Enoch here.
So I'll tell you what, guys. Give me a little background in what you do, every day to day, and then we'll talk about NA, AA, a little bit on rehab.
A little bit,
and talk about some of the problems in the community, if you will, that I think is under the surface and people really don't know it, don't see it. And also, I want to talk about, what are the signs that family members should be looking for? How do they spot, like in young people, that there's something awry? Because it's there. I don't know if it's isolated or what, but we'll stop there. So, Mike, tell me a little bit about your background, please.
As far as an AA, well,
no, just what you
my
do.
background.
Yeah.
Oh, what I do. Yeah, I'm a counselor at the Villa. I work at Villa Veritas. I've been working in counseling continuously for 10 years. In 2000, I worked a little bit as a counselor, but I decided I thought drinking would be a better idea than doing that, so I drank again after having 4 years clean. So at this time, I've been on 12 years clean, just celebrated last month.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, and born and raised in the Bronx, alcoholic neighborhood. It was funny because my brother just recently passed away, and being that happened, I had to reach out. Some people from the old neighborhood reached out to me, and one of the guys I talked to, he goes, "You got to get to a meeting here. It's like a high school reunion." Because everyone in the neighborhood is in the rooms now from my old neighborhood in the Bronx. We all started in 6th grade drinking regularly.
Really? Sixth grade?
6th grade, we'd be on the weekends and getting beers and being at the park. 8th grade, for myself, in 8th grade, I was blacking out already. I was drinking and blacking out. It was just, right from the beginning, I really had a taste for it.
I thought I'm from Rochester, New York, and I thought I lived in a fairly tough neighborhood. There were more criminals than there were drugs and alcohol. And most of I think, besides my brothers and I and a few other people, everybody else had a criminal record in my neighborhood. But maybe I was too naive at the time to pick up on the drug and alcohol, but I'm sure it was there. I just didn't know it.
No, exactly.
Gambling was also a big thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But so, Pat, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Pat D, and I'm an alcoholic, and I've been in recovery for 19 years. My sobriety date's March 3rd, 2002. I have a home group. It's here in Kingston, New York. We meet at 7:30 at the Old Dutch Church. I have a sponsor. He's been in AA about 7 years longer than I have, and I've been through the steps as outlined in the book, Alcoholics Anonymous. So having said that, it's funny that you mentioned Rochester, because about 7 years ago, Rochester hosted, the young people in Rochester hosted a AA Young People's Convention, and it was a smashing success.
Is that right?
And it was my first time ever there. I had a garbage plate and all that stuff. And
wait. You have to say what a garbage plate is. People don't know what that means.
So there's,
I don't know if you ate out of a trash can or
right,
special.
That was the old days.
Right. So there's a restaurant there that serves this plate full of beans and rice and and hot dogs and buns and all this stuff piled up, and it's
on a paper plate.
On a paper plate, and they had a roaring success because the young people from all over New York came to this convention to share their experience, strength and hope in Rochester.
Hey, Dan, would you look up garbage plate in Rochester? We can tell the name of the place. I can't think of it.
Okay.
It's my
All right.
hometown.
Let me see.
So,
Look it up.
so that leads into my experience with young people in AA, right? So I got sober. I was relatively young. I was in my very early 30s, and in California. So I moved back to New York, and became involved in the young people's group here in New York, or in Kingston, right off the rip. And by getting attached to young people, I was introduced to conventions and events and that idea of fellowship with other young people. Being relatively young, I wasn't trying to get my house back, my career on track, rebuild the family, avoid divorce. Alcoholism and drug addiction never allowed me to attain those things. So I didn't have that. I wasn't trying to fix my life. I wanted adventure and fun and good times. So the idea of getting sober was terrifying to someone young, because what am I going to do now? So young people in AA showed me what I was going to do, and we had a good time.
Does that sound pretty consistent? I guess the difference, Mike, would be that there are those who want to get their life back together again, and there are those who haven't started their career and just involved and trying to find a road, if you will, a path to living a normal life, or even maybe getting into school or staying in school. I don't know what the difference is.
No, exactly. And with that fear, the fear of what's it going to be like now after doing something continuously for a certain amount of time. It's a pattern, it's a habit. And then it's what am I going to do? How am I going to go have fun? How am I going to socialize? All these thoughts and fears, because I know at the bar, a couple of beers in, I'm talking to everybody.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. The garbage plate is by what group?
Nick Tahoe Hots.
Nick Tahoe.
Nick Tahoe Hots, landmark eatery celebrated for its garbage plate mashup of meats, fries, salads, and sauces.
And it's really on. You see
Sounds great.
You see those commercials on TV where they say, "Look at this paper plate; it falls apart." Yeah. And then you use this one. Nick Tahoe uses the one that falls apart. It's really thin and it's greasy. I've only had one in my life. I mean, anyhow.
It's like a paper plate for the pizza shop.
That was when you say garbage plate.
Yeah.
I didn't want people to think you're reading out of the trash can.
I have, though. As someone in recovery, that is definitely a menu item that I've definitely done.
Write it in, huh?
Yeah.
A menu item, yeah.
Well, at least you didn't have to order. You have to write it down in order.
Right.
You gotta find it. Anyhow, that's really sad.
Yeah, but like he was saying with the young people crowd, from when I was at Detox and from other things, the average age of someone that's dying in this community is 24 years old.
Is what, dying?
24 years old, overdosing and dying. When I was at Detox, the client base for opiates was around 24. There were so many kids in their 20s just got out of high school, things like that, 20s. It's like this resurgence of something that was looked down upon in my era. Like in the 70s, you would think heroin, like Needle Park. That movie Panic in Needle Park with Al Pacino, you'd think someone standing on a corner nodding out. That's what you think a stereotypical junkie is. Now, there's just children doing it. That's what it is. I didn't really get into drugs until I was after, kind of towards the end of high school. I was, my neighborhood was like a drinking neighborhood. Even pot wasn't that big. And then I came around, in high school and stuff. But these days, 20-year-old kids are dying.
Well, when you say they start out young and how do they get access to this? And at what age group does it happen? I mean, we're in Kingston. It can't be happening in Kingston.
So here's something
that
I've seen in the years of working with young people. A lot of times, the introduction to drugs is from your family. The first experience a little kid has is he has something wrong with him. His parent gives him a pill to make him feel better. That is his first introduction to this substance that they give me is going to make me feel better. Then as they get older, the substances get stronger and they see that this is somehow going to fix them. So that mindset is already there, that some outside substance, a drug, is going to fix the way they feel. So that's already kind of implemented from the time they took their first children's chewable. So as they get older, the access to them probably comes from a parent who got a script from a doctor for some ailment and is just sitting in the bathroom in the medicine cabinet. So there's oxycodones and all kinds of other drugs that are available. So they take one, and it makes them feel good. It makes them feel amazing.
You get that euphoric effect.
The euphoric effect is there. And
I mean, is there some kind of information or suggestion from their peers? Is there a peer thing that goes on, like talking about what's in your medicine cabinet? I mean, to play a devil's advocate, and a devil's advocate to me is somebody who doesn't agree with what you just said.
Yeah.
So to play a devil's advocate, so if some mother gives a kid an aspirin and they have a headache and they feel better, you think that's an introduction. That's
like
for
a
me,
mindset.
For me, that's a little bit of a stretch. But I think it's a great thought process to be thinking about, that you have to be careful about what you give your children, and maybe they need to tough it out. Some people, like I have a son who doesn't like needles. So if he is going to have his tooth drilled, he doesn't want Novocaine. And so his mindset is to sit there and they drill his teeth. How's that one?
That's not a good one. Oh my God.
So
that one.
So, so the introduction, I would think it's more psychological from the family than innocently take this Tylenol, sweetheart, you got a headache. We don't want to indict parents here. At the same time, can we say it a little differently, Pat?
So I think what needs to be done is very matter-of-factly telling them what is happening. So you are experiencing this pain, and there is a substance that's gonna help you feel better. Now, taking it responsibly is how it works. Say like, I'll give you one, and that's how it works. It makes you feel better. And and reading the side effects and saying like, look, this may give you a tummy ache because it's a strong medicine. So, but that's part of how it works. And then as things go along, just explaining the truth.
Don't do it again. Don't take it again.
I'm from the generation with Nancy Reagan telling me to just say no. And I think that was completely wrong, and we failed. I think to say just say no, K-N-O-W, here's the facts. This is what this drug does. This is what the side effects may be, and here are the potential long-term effects. If you continue to take it, your body will become used to it. So just telling people the truth and not being like, oh, well, it's...
We have the same problem with antibiotics. You take an antibiotic, but the difference is you become antibiotic resistant. So if you take penicillin a lot, after a while, you either get an allergy or the antibiotic doesn't work.
It's not going to do what it's supposed to do.
You got to take another antibiotic, which is stronger, and we get into that. So that's another situation. It doesn't have the same euphoric effect as what we're talking about.
But the biological effect that the human body is experiencing.
I think that's a good idea, Pat, to make sure parents tell children what the side effects are of taking, like aspirin. If you take too much aspirin, you could end up hurting your stomach, and it makes your stomach bleed.
Yeah.
And
and also, like what he was saying, and that's true, like that comes in, you go to grandma's house, grandma has rheumatoid arthritis, I'm going to go in there when she's sleeping and she's going to give me some money, and then I'm going to go in there and take some pills. But also sometimes people from like maybe a less socioeconomic standpoint and a broken family, things like that. There could be an older sibling. There could be some people like with me in the neighborhood, it was a thing. I wanted to aspire to be those guys drinking at the park. I wanted to aspire to that. That was like my short-term goal when I was a kid, is to aspire to the guys hanging out in the park because they were cool and they looked like they were having fun. So you get someone younger who needs that acceptance and needs something, and then you got an older brother or someone else, hey, do a little bit of this, it's all right. Next thing you know, he's taking a pill or sniffing something. I know the first time I'm a drinker, but I had a heroin habit in 2003 for a short, about 6-month period of time. And the second I never did it before, and someone's like, we were all doing coke, and it was like this 6 o'clock in the morning, just want to go to sleep. Hey, try this. And I never did heroin before. What is it? Heroin. Oh, all right, I'll try it. And then when I sniffed it, it popped the receptors, everything else. I was like, yeah, this is good stuff. And that was it.
What happened?
I stopped doing coke and drinking, and I caught a habit for about 6 months, and I was sniffing heroin. I got it to a bundle a day. of just sniffing heroin. I didn't go to the needle. It took a family kind of thing to happen. My mom got, there was a big thing, and I just went home and I had to stop. And I detoxed myself. It took 4 or 5 days, a lot of Gatorade, a lot of pot, and a lot of throwing up.
So, that takes me to the next point, parents. What are the telltale signs for parents? I mean, everybody thinks that, kids lock themselves in their room. They're on their computers now. Do they not go out? Do they socialize differently? How do you tell what should parents be looking for in their children, male, female? What's the difference? What do they do?
I think it is difficult today because how kids are raised today differently than we were, a few generations ago, where our social network was the kids in your neighborhood. Now, socially, kids are online. So you may think they're isolating. They got their headphones on and they're in front of the screen, but there's a whole world of other people that they're communicating with. So isolation is a difficult one to say whether or not is that what they are actually doing. But I think really what it comes down to is knowing your kid, talking to them, and are their interests changing? Are the people that they are talking to changing? Are they less interested in things like the old things that brought them good times? Do they drop their interest in sports or other activities? Are they suddenly not doing the same thing? So it's the change in behavior. You have to be observant. But it also that's kind of hard because sometimes as kids grow and change, they just change. So it's really about communication and talking to them. If the kid doesn't want to talk to you, or you feel that they're starting to lie about how they're feeling or what they're going through, that might be a clue. But it's hard. I don't know if there's really an answer to watching someone's behavior change.
Gee, I thought you were going to tell me an answer.
But that was good what he said with the changing of behavior. You might not even, because the way they are, everything's in the computer and this and that. But knowing your child, and like my mom knew something was up. I had priests knocking on my door. I'm sleeping in my room, and as if Father Morrow's outside my room trying to get me. Like my mom knew something was up, just based on my disposition, sleeping too much, not being the same. Oh, I'm not going to eat dinner tonight. Certain things like that, like things that are like a normal structured household. If you're in a normal, you eat dinner at a certain time, there's certain things, all right, we're going to have family time now, whatever it is. And if they start disassociating themselves from that and always got their head down, that's a sign, like everyone's looking at depression and all these other things. But it might not even be that. It just might be the use. It might just be that. And it's going to mask itself as symptoms of depression. Oh, he's sad. He broke up with his girlfriend, whatever it may be, things like that. And it's like, it's hard to tell. And kids, like he said, a lot of people are getting thrown on Adderall as a child, as a younger, and ADHD meds, and that just excels to other stuff.
What about that? ADHD and, hyperactive children, do you see in your groups that some of these kids came from that background?
Oh, absolutely.
What does that mean?
What it means, I think, for me, is that we are now understanding that mental health issues are developing farther earlier on that we're recognizing today. So how we treat those issues is important. First of all, we have to remove the stigma of there's something's wrong. This is just a fact that there's a chemical imbalance and it needs to be dealt with. The other thing is openly talking about therapy and seeing doctors from the neck up. It's important that we get checkup from the neck up. Are you feeling okay? Not like, is your tummy hurt, but is your mind not working? And how are you dealing with that? So as a parent looking at a kid that may be diagnosed with something, the other thing is like getting second opinions and talking to experts in the field about what's wrong with my kid, or is there even anything wrong? A lot of times people don't know what to do, so they're thrown into this world of pharmaceuticals, and maybe it's guesswork. Maybe they're just trying to figure it out. So
you mean the professionals are trying to
professionals,
yes.
They don't know for sure, so they say, well, we're going to try them on this, and if it works, it works. Or is it time to up the dose?
You find that some of the kids that you see or people you see started out as ADD or hyperactive and were given medications and stuff.
Right. And the stigma of it, of being like something's wrong with you, is shameful. So you stop taking them, or they start working, and then you feel better and you stop taking them because I don't need it. And let it
Because you
out.
think, that's psychosis.
But what ends up happening is you're not properly dealing with the issues, the underlying issues of addiction and alcoholism. So you start to self-medicate, whether that's through drugs or other behaviors. So suddenly you found some other way to change the way you feel, and you feel, or the addict, I should say, I would feel, that I'm in control of my destiny now. I have decided that I'm going to use this behavior to make myself feel better. I don't need the doctor. I don't need my parents. So there's this like empowerment feeling of like, I'm taking care of myself now. So we have to, again, remove that stigma of asking for help when things don't feel right is okay. It's okay to say, I don't feel good.
So asking for help, I think that's a good jumping off point. How do you get people into AA and A? In my family, I have a nephew who's in NA, in AA, and he's 14 years clean. And as you know, that's difficult. Oh, get closer.
Yeah.
It's difficult. You're 14 years clean. And I forgot where I was going with that now. Dan, thanks.
Nice, Dan.
Introduction.
Oh, so how do you get him? I think the point that he would say to me is they got to be, at the bottom, and they got no place to go, and then they start looking for help. Is that how it works, or?
So my experience is that I was given the gift of desperation. My life was in such a mess, and that I had experienced this deplorable feeling of desperation that I was willing to go to whatever lengths were put before me. And now I kind of came in on what they call a nudge from the judge. I got arrested, but before I went to court, I called somebody, a guy that I knew who had gotten himself into trouble and was going to AA. So like instinctively, some intuition came into my head. Maybe you should call this guy and ask him what happened, how he got better. So I don't know where it was planted, but I do remember early childhood experiences were that if you got a DUI, you went to AA. That's what I knew. That is it. Something happened and you went to AA. I didn't know anything about AA. I just thought it was an extension of the court somehow or another. And that's how it kind of came introduced. I remember specifically not being ready and having people tell me about recovery and me thinking, good for you, not interested. I hope that works out for you, but I'm going to go this way. I don't want your help. Or I would somehow decide that I would change my location. So I would try all these different things, but in the end, it's being willing to go and try it. So thankfully, from my experience with someone from AA, I knew, and I asked them for help, and they brought me to a meeting. And that very simple 12-step act of reaching out and helping another alcoholic was what got me here. So on this, though, I do want to plug the AA hotline, and that's in Kingston. It's 845-331-6360. If you have a problem with alcohol and you want help, feel free to call that, 845-331-6360.
What do they do?
They will put you on the phone with another alcoholic and talk you through the next step.
One of the sad parts is, it's 7:30 in the morning, and the people who are listening are probably not the people who
are gonna,
or they've been up all night.
They've been up all night. What's this?
Or they're cracking their eye opener. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like to get their day started, they needed one. They need a drink right now.
Yeah. I met this kid at the gym a couple of years back, and he said he could do some work for me. I was rehabbing a house, and I could tell that he was a character. And he said he did drugs. He wasn't doing it anymore. So he needed a place to crash. So we had this bed, the blow-up bed. We put it in the bedroom for him, and and he wasn't getting a lot of work done. So the guys working in the house said, this guy goes in the bathroom. He's there 45 minutes. That's not normal, Ed.
Yeah.
I don't see that. I don't know what that means.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not attuned to that. So I said to him, I said, are you doing drugs in my house? No, I wouldn't do that. No. I said, because if you are, you and I are going to have a problem. And he promised me he wasn't. So I went there on a Sunday, and I had people. I was showing him the house, and he's in bed, in this bed, and I didn't know he was there. I opened the door up to the bedroom, and he's on this blow-up bed, and next to him is oxycodone pills that he had crushed. And as soon as I opened the door up, he covered it up. And of course, that was the end of our relationship. So I told him to get out of the house. I said, I want you out of here in 10 minutes. I wasn't at all sympathetic. I didn't say, you have a problem, go someplace. I was just...
You set a boundary for yourself,
Yeah.
and that's clear. That's the other aspect of people finding that they need help, is by the people that care about them setting these hard boundaries.
So I didn't do anything wrong.
No. Like enabling someone to continue to use is how you keep
Exactly.
perpetuate their using, by setting a clear boundary, by like, look, I am not going to allow this behavior from you around me. You have to go somewhere else. That is, what they call tough love. You can call it whatever you want, but what you're doing is setting a healthy boundary for yourself. So if someone who is using takes a look at that and they can get honest with themselves, which is difficult because denial is don't even know I'm lying. The denial of the disease is the hardest thing for people to overcome.
So what did you call? I said we're on in the morning here. I thought maybe older people or some parents, or maybe grandparents are listening to us now.
No, exactly.
Not teenagers. So who are the people that might be just still awake? What do you call that?
Well, the guys that are the eye openers.
Eye openers when they need a little drink to settle the nerves before they can function.
Just passed out last night. Now they wake up and they need something to keep them going, just to function. So, I mean, that's the extreme part of alcoholism. The other aspect of you asked about how people will know if they're ready is those people around them saying you can't live here, you're kicked out of the house, you're this, and like no fault to them, they don't know. There are other programs for those people, Al-Anon and such like that. But when you start running out of places to go, that's where the bottom kind of comes up to you. But now there are people that will bottom dwell for years because the system is put in place to keep them alive. We're going to give you minimal amounts of help. Maybe put you in a shelter. Maybe give you a detox for a few days. Maybe, give you just the bare minimum to keep you alive. And that's, for many people, that's where they stay. They get stuck there. But that desperation, feeling like you're completely isolated and alone, that's really where the beginning comes from. And that's from the people that really care about you. Now, it's easy to fall in with a crowd of people that feel like they're there for you, but they're fellow alcoholics. They're fellow addicts. You end up in really bad living situations, which is another problem that we have in this community is getting people into healthy living situations. Say you get busted for something or another, you come out of jail or the detox or wherever, and they throw you right back to the neighborhood that you just came out of with no support. Maybe the family members are the toxic situation. So it's not just about stopping using. It's about stopping using and being put in a safe place that encourages you to get the help you need. So finding yourself that surrounded by people that are enabling your behavior, why would you change? So it's important that people set boundaries. It's important that people that are dealing with an alcoholic or addict in their life are reaching out to resources and asking, how do I deal with an alcoholic in my life?
Exactly, and that can be hard though with the stigma. My son's an addict, and they don't want to tell anybody. I get a lot of phone calls from like family members and things. So like, I don't know, my name gets thrown around, and my son's doing this. I said, when I go, no, can you meet him at a meeting? And sometimes it's like, all right, Ma, I'll go to the meeting, but it's like, really, shut up, Ma. And then they go to a meeting, and the way they're getting in is like through resistance. But sometimes they may go in and say, hey, I grew up with him. You might like know somebody, like having that connection is maybe we'll do something different. But like he was saying about setting the boundaries and people stay on the bottom for a while, the recidivism rate at the hospital, just like one thing. And they don't want to, Suboxone seems like, all right, you're not feeling well, you're opiate, here, take some Suboxone, just put them on another medication. That's really all they're doing.
And then when they overdose, what do we do when they overdose? And the police show up or a nurse?
I mean, hopefully
The
someone
Narcan them.
Narcan's
Yeah, try to get them Narcan back.
So we're going to talk about Narcan. We're going to take a little quick break here. We'll talk about Narcan, and also I want to do something about Al-Anon, talk about that for family members too, okay?
Thank you, Dr. Ed Aleo, and a very, very special thanks to Pat and Mike for being here, Villa Veritas, and thank you so much for this last half hour, and many thanks to our listeners. KCR is Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. Monday, July 26th, and 66 degrees here in uptown Kingston. And today, a little fog this morning's probably rising and otherwise partly cloudy with a high of 89 today. Tonight, clear skies, a low of 61. Tuesday, sunny along with a few afternoon clouds, a high of 89. Nice day for Tuesday. Tuesday night, a 40% chance of thunderstorms in the evening with some showers overnight, a low of 60. And we will be right back. This last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Central Hudson. We'll be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
Get ready to go with Central Hudson on an epic adventure at the Dutchess County Fair, August 24th through the 29th. Visit us at our main booth in Building C and say howdy to Zoltar the Fortune Teller, who will predict your energy future. Then pop over to Central Hudson's booth at K29 to score 10 LEDs plus a desk lamp for only $10. See you in Rhinebeck at booth C30 and K29. Electrical fires can be caused by overloaded circuits or outlets, frayed wires, faulty appliances, or deficient cords. This is Central Hudson reminding you, in the event of an electrical fire, call the fire department and let them know it's an electrical fire. Never use water to put out the flames of an electrical fire, as that may cause serious shock. And use only an approved fire extinguisher. If possible to do so safely, shut off the main breaker. Your safety matters.
Hi, this is Eleanor Arrow from the town of Ulster, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
You're listening to WGHQ AM 920 and 92.5 FM, the home of Kingston Community Radio. My name is Dan Gatus, and it is 8:02 a.m., and it's Monday, July 26th, 66 degrees now here in uptown Kingston. The last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Central Hudson. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Herzog's. Herzog's employees have been a part of the Herzog's family for years, and they value personal customer service and being close to their community. Stop by Herzog's Home and Paint Center in the Kingston Plaza for all of your home building, maintenance, and painting needs. Discover the difference of buying local. Look at them online, and their sales are ongoing at herzogs.com. Let's get back to the on-air studio with Dr. Ed Aleo and Pat D. and Mike Enoch. Welcome back.
Okay, thanks, Dan. We're having a little discussion offline here about rehab and NA and AA and the differences, which I didn't know. But I'll say this, and you guys can then follow up if you would. So if you're in rehab, rehab is counseling, which is obviously good. But in the counseling, they don't necessarily in rehab introduce NA or AA because of a component in the 12 steps that talks about a higher being or God or something like that. So they want to keep a difference, if I got it right, of separation of church and state. And for me, it seems like it shouldn't make any difference when you're trying to save someone's life, whether
on what option they can choose to do.
Whether you can put them together and say, there's a higher being. It could be the sun. It could be nature you like, or a God. I get that. It seems like, again, because we're so PC oriented.
Yep.
And I'm of a certain age now where I've thrown PC out the window. I don't really care anymore.
And me too. Yeah, my wife's like, what are you saying?
But I think when you're in there to save a young person's life or an older person's life, or they're they're addicted to drugs or alcohol, it doesn't really matter what it takes to get them to do it.
Exactly.
And so I find that to be that dichotomy to be somewhat disconcerting.
So one of the things that I like to share with people when I go into a facility or speak to someone who's on a program of some sort is that all of these things come to an end. Your probation ends. Your outpatient treatment plan ends. Your time at a facility ends. All of those are a finite thing. The 12-step programs don't end. They're there on that day. The day that you walk away from your treatment plan, or the day that your probation officer says you're free to go, that's the day that your recovery in 12-step work could and should begin.
Okay. So just for the sake of our audience, or sake of Ed Aleo, that's me.
Yeah,
so there's rehab and then there's recovery. So rehab is like, you're learning you're detoxed, and now to leave the facility and go back on the street and take something, you're back into the same problem.
You're back into the same thing.
So recovery is the word that separates rehab from being in this program for a visit or for life. What is it?
I think that's you're very accurate with that. I think the idea that, and I speak in analogies, and one of the ones, my favorite one, is being in a car, and you crash your car into a ditch. So you call a tow truck, that's the recovery, or that's the detox and the rehab. They pull your car out of the ditch.
And you got to fix it.
And you fix it. So everything's good. Your car's back on the road, everything's good. Now you have to drive down the road and obey the traffic laws to not end up back in the ditch.
That's your recovery.
That's 12
Okay,
steps.
so
I like that.
Speaking
of
of that's a good analogy. We have a caller.
Yes, one of our other hosts reminded us to do birthdays.
Oh, that's
okay. So we have a happy birthday today to Dick Z, and it is Monday, July 26th. So happy birthday, Dick Z, from your friends at the Wellness and Healthy Lifestyle Club.
Right.
And that is there's one birthday today. So guess what?
He wins.
Dick Z, you win the famous cow pie from Boyce Dairy Milk House, 62 O'Neill Street, Kingston, New York. Just go see Sally there at Boyce Dairy Milk House, and your cow pie for your birthday today is courtesy of Boyce Dairy Milk House and Kingston Community Radio.
I understand that Boyce now has a farm on Old Kings Highway where they have buffalo. So will it be a buffalo pie or just a cow pie?
This one's a cow pie. We haven't transitioned yet. Okay. And we do have a caller.
We do have a caller.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought. Hello, caller.
Good morning. I would like to talk about the rehab for the drugs. One of the things I think that really needs to change, when a person comes out of rehab and they just go right back to their old neighborhood, they have contact with the people who they were dealing drugs with. One of my children, years back, had been on drugs and had gone to a rehab center. The one she went to, the first 3 months she was there, she couldn't receive any calls, she couldn't receive visitors, she couldn't get mail, nothing. And then when I first went to visit, there was a coordinator there. Later on, she was in there for quite a while, and when she came out, she could not move back home. She had to stay out of the area that she was with, so she would not be in contact with anyone that she dealt drugs with. And they don't do that anymore today. A few years back, somebody
at first with
who was on drugs.
I'm sorry, caller. Let me ask these guys: is that true today yet?
No, a lot of times that is true, and it all depends on the person's willingness. Like a big treatment component is like a housing thing. Like, what is your what's all that stuff going on around you that's participating in your addiction? Okay, maybe you shouldn't go home. Maybe we should help you find some sort of sober house or some safe living environment. But in this area, That's non-existent.
Doesn't exist.
They don't have that anymore. They have one halfway house in Ulster County that has 18 beds in one county. The detox used to serve Ulster, Columbia, and Greene County because there's no detoxes there. So now the throat has been cut and it's bleeding. There's no services in this area. So someone that gets out of treatment, where are they going to put him? They're going to put him in Johnsie's house.
So, ma'am, caller, so what happened in your situation with your family?
Okay, it was one of my children. She's doing wonderful. She's been on drugs for many, many years and has really turned her life around completely.
Good for her.
You know, but if she had come back here, there's a very good chance she would have been right back with the people who she dealt drugs with. And it would have been a different outcome.
Yeah, because like with 28 days in rehab, what does that do? It gets you away from 30 days. It gets your head cleared. It gives you some sense of direction. You're not feeling, you're starting to feel things that maybe you haven't felt. So a good counselor is going to get in there and try to deal with some trauma and see what's going on and then get services after treatment. Okay, this is what we started delving in here. Now we want you to go to therapy after that and have this. So the continuity of stuff. And of course, if someone's going to go out 30 days later and then think they're going to walk back in the same neighborhood and be resistant to it, you're really not. You need to start doing some more to be like, if I went around my neighborhood and there was people that I used to use with right now, I'd say, hey, how you doing? There'd be nothing for me. It wouldn't bother me. But if it was my 31st day and I see somebody and I know that they have something in their pocket, it's very easy to do that. Acceptance and just like,
And recovery comes into place.
Yeah.
Well, caller, so your daughter's doing well then, eh?
Yeah, definitely. It's been for years. And when the first few times, when I visited her, they had a coordinator sitting with us too. And then when she was first allowed to come home, she could not come home by herself for a visit.
Can I ask another question?
Somebody had to come with her.
How old was your daughter when she started?
She was in her, when she went into drug rehab, she was in her early 20s.
Okay, early 20s. That fits our time frame. Well, listen, thanks so much for the call. We really appreciate that. And I think we have another caller, so thanks so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
So it's interesting that, like you said earlier, these people are in their early 20s, and it's been like that forever, probably. That's when they start. I don't know if 40, 50-year-old people start, but I'm sure they do every now and then. But there
is a new segment on people in that age that
actually the AA Grapevine. I just got mine today, and there's a special edition on older AAs. People either coming in older or have been around a long time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so we do address that for the older AA.
Yeah, people retiring. Like when people retire and they don't have the same structure that they had, next thing you know, they might have had a few pops after work, but now it's like, it's 12 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and then start drinking a little bit earlier. And next thing you know, they are alcoholics, but they were able to be functioning their whole lives. And now they're retired and they don't have the structure. The functioning alcoholic turns into a hardcore alcoholic who's sitting in detox now after never being in treatment his whole life. And also some people who don't know anything about drugs.
How successful are the older groups, older people that get into this stuff versus the kids? Same recidivist rate,
pretty much the same. I think anybody that comes to recovery, to 12-step programs, has the same shot as everyone else. As far as what your chances are, it really comes down to the support network that you build.
Exactly.
You have to seek out the fellowship you crave. It's for some people. Some people are not into the big crowds, and they're not they don't want to be around large crowds of people. So it can be difficult, but if you put the effort into reaching out to people when it's necessary, you'll get the results. I think this lady mentioned that her daughter got out of rehab and then was afraid to go back to the same neighborhood. Now in AA we have service committees that pander to that. We have what they call bridging the gap. So we have a group of people that are willing to go to facilities and give people their name, their number, and say, on the day that you're released, call me and I will come pick you up and bring you to a meeting, and we'll begin your 12-step recovery that way. But unfortunately, that doesn't always get get into play all the time.
Yeah,
and it is available. The other saying is like the first thing you do when you leave a rehab is go to a meeting.
And raise your hand and
raise
say,
your hand and
I just
say that.
got out of rehab.
And those are the people that all the old timers run to and be like, congratulations, welcome.
And they want to help them.
So what let's say that somebody didn't go into rehab and they've hit bottom, rock bottom, or they're surfing on a bottom, and so they want to test the water. Why do they not go? And when they get there after a meeting, why do they not go back?
It's uncomfortability, feeling uncomfortable in your own skin. So walking in, who are these people? You may have some trust issues. You could have been grown up in an abusive household. I'm not going to tell these people my business. So all these things that we have, you walk in. I know when I can talk to anybody about anything at any time. I was always able to do that my whole life. I worked in hotels and restaurants. I came into AA. I was standing outside like this, not knowing what to say, very uncomfortable. So I had to push through those uncomfortable feelings. I had to allow myself to feel uncomfortable and then let people know me. But people, once they feel uncomfortable, forget this, I ain't going back there, that's crazy. And they're all nuts. And then your brain is going to say something to push that crap away based on you feeling uncomfortable, nervous, anxious, and scared. And rather than saying, I feel nervous, anxious, and scared, it's easy to run from that, especially men. They ain't really going to say, oh, I ain't scared.
And I don't need this.
Yeah, exactly.
I can do it on my own?
Do it on my own.
A lot of that, yeah.
I feel better now. I haven't drank in 30 days. I don't physically need it anymore. I'm going to be fine. And then they actually think that. It's not like they're lying to anybody. They're just lying to themselves in their alcoholism. That's really what they're doing. And once you get connected in, you're in, man. You're in the club. And it's a good thing that any time, day or night, I can pick up the phone and call someone if I'm going through some stuff.
So, let's talk for a second about fentanyl. I heard something on the news the other day, which took me by surprise. Not really by surprise, but the number was something, that they have fentanyl laced with oxycodone and heroin, and the death rate in New York State is up 22%. Is that true?
Yeah, and I just, 20%? I'm not going to be able to find it quick enough with... There was a posting about that spikes in the last week alone, spikes in the county had dramatically went up. So recently there's been a spike of ODs that have been reported out of the ODs. Let's really put that straight.
We make it simple. OD mean they
overdosed on drugs, and that's why they died. They overdosed on a bad batch of fentanyl, and it's reported as that way. Sometimes it may not be reported as that way, that they died from that. Maybe with family, maybe who knows. The numbers I don't see the numbers being accurate, but there's a big spike in it because there's no services here. There's no detox. There is no help in this community. Samadhi is a place they have to set you up with resources, but there's no resources to be set up with. Just like Chiz is closing. There's no place to put half of those people.
So here's something, too, to ponder is that we hear things like the death rates of fentanyl are astronomical, and in the last decade we've come up with these more powerful drugs. Now, my experience was if I heard that some guy on the street was selling something that was killing people, that's what I wanted. I wanted the most powerful drug you could get.
Really?
That's where I
absolutely.
went. Like, why would I want a lesser drug? I want the good stuff.
That guy died.
And that mentality is why scare tactics don't work. You can't be like, hey, man, that guy got heroin. He's going to be the busy
Russian
guy.
roulette.
It is, absolutely.
But what they're doing now, when they're like, all right, we're going to get this stuff. All right, you'll be with me. You have the Narcan. So bring me back. Then when you do it, I'll bring you back. That's the mentality. And people, like I think I got into this a little bit last time I was with you, about it's like a badge of courage. I overdosed 6 times. I overdosed 9. It's like a badge of courage.
So, but the sad part is if a lay person, everybody has Narcan. Mm-hmm. So if somebody gives them Narcan, brings them back, and that guy leaves, he's only got 1 dose of Narcan, and it's not out of the guy's system, and an hour later,
he's going to
overdose again and die?
Yes, that can happen because the Narcan it blocks the receptor for a certain amount of time. So once you get Narcan, you got to go to the hospital.
They don't do it.
No, and sometimes, and even EMT, we got to go to the hospital. I don't want to go.
I feel okay.
Yeah, so sometimes, like, what are they going to do, throw you in there? And with the Good Samaritan law, it's not like they're even going to get arrested. Someone come in there and Narcan, there can be heroin all over the place, and no one's going to get in trouble for any of that. No, I don't want to go to, I'm good now, so they won't go to the ER. I wouldn't want to go to the ER in this area either, because what are they going to do? Make you sit there, and then they're going to send you to maybe St. Francis or the old Manhattan.
Wait. So you're saying that going to the emergency room is a negative for somebody who overdose because they are ostracized, looked at differently?
Absolutely.
As a druggie?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Use that term?
Sure.
Yes.
And they don't, maybe they don't want to stop.
Yeah.
Like
sometimes you got to have it.
So
you got to have a willingness to
is the
stop.
problem that they don't want to stop and be there, or is the problem that the professional staff doesn't really want them, that they don't care
both.
about?
It's a
all
both.
of it.
It's a combination.
Attitude.
It's
Two
an
attitudes.
Two attitudes
in collision.
Yeah, and also if someone comes in and they have this much willingness, they have, all right, something's going on, I got to do this, all right, I'll go to the emergency room. Then they go to the emergency room and they treat it like a piece of crap. Oh, sit there, someone will get to you, and make them wait for 4 hours. They're going to say, F this.
I got an
start to get
idea.
sick.
They start to
I
get
got an idea. So why don't you guys do some kind of education for emergency room?
We have
they don't want to help.
CPI, cooperation with the professionals, and public information. We have pamphlets to doctors. We have there are plenty of resources for that. The problem is getting that to getting the people that are doing that to show up to that. We have one that's the cooperation with the corrections facility. Now we show up and we're like, we'll tell you all about how this works. You guys have to come. So now they have to work it in their budget to pay these people the hour to be at this seminar. So if a hospital staff is going to get paid to show up to our seminar, they'll probably show up. But if not, then they're not taking their time out of their
American
day.
way, right? The government's got to take care of you.
I will show up for
Someone's gotta
free
pay.
all they want,
Yeah,
but if
yeah.
they're not getting paid, they're not showing
We're not
up.
going to pay you. We're not going to educate ourselves.
And also some of the
Sad.
staff that may be there, we don't know what their own personal stuff is. Their brother could have died. There can be things, so they look at the addicts like, oh, you piece of crap, based on their own stuff. And it's very easy to be dismissive to someone, especially when they're in a real bad situation.
Guys, so the bottom line is, if we're going to talk about recovery, it sounds like there should be more of a network in the community, which you guys do a great job, I'm sure, of netting, if you will, getting these people, young people especially, to sample a meeting, if nothing else. Maybe you should come up with a sampling program.
Well, we do. I've been on meetings where we've taken meeting into the high school. We put meeting lists in all of the areas that have that kind of thing out there.
You guys say scare tactics don't work, but if somebody is near the bottom and you're in school, it sounds like, and we did the tough love thing already. You can't do that here. If you're in the high school, maybe it should be more blunt delivery as opposed to a coaching effect. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, when I'm asked to share my experience, strength, and hope as an AA member, I tell the truth, and I don't sugarcoat it, but I don't glorify it either. I'm not here to tell you how cool it was until I got here. I'm here to tell you that it sucked.
But how about do you tell them that, listen, you're living a fake dream here?
I don't tell people how they're living.
Show them how you're living.
I show them how I'm living.
Really?
Yeah, because if I tell someone what they're doing, they're shut off. Don't tell me what I'm doing.
Exactly. Don't tell me what to do.
Don't tell me what to do. Or you don't know me, and I don't. I know me. So
now you sound like a psychologist, and I don't agree. I don't agree with that.
Right. Oh no, I hear you.
In the sense, because you're great, Pat.
But it's attraction. It's attraction, not promotion.
It's yeah.
That's what our 12 steps are based on.
And also that piece, what I was just saying. I'm sorry.
You guys are great.
They have the moment of willingness. So like they have a moment of clarity and say, I got to do something. So that happens. When that happens, it needs to be enhanced by someone in front of them who cares and says, it's all right, I understand, let's get you some help.
At that point, every door should be open. Please,
Exactly.
come on in.
No, exactly, and it's not.
How about, when you show the prison things, where these kids are
Scared straight.
Yeah, scared straight. That doesn't work with you guys?
No, well, that doesn't work. I remember watching that, and so in my head I'm thinking, this kid's sitting here and this prisoner's yelling at him, but they're filming it. He ain't going to hit him. He ain't going to do anything. You can yell in my face all you want, but I know I'm safe. How's that going to scare me? It's not going to scare me straight. It's not going to do anything because it's just part of a ruse. It's one thing if said like, all right, you're going to go in H-Pod for a day, and no one's going to know that you're not even a criminal. Go in there. Then maybe they'll say, oh, crap, I don't want my life to be like that. But when something's scripted and scared straight, these guys can yell in your face and say all these things. But you know that you're walking out the door. You're not going to be in prison, and that big guy is not going to have his way with you. You know what I mean?
Okay. I got it. Okay. I
get a little passionate. Sorry there.
You guys are passionate. That's the best part of you guys. You are passionate, and that's what helps people in these programs. I'm only, I like to do this again and again and again, but I don't know how often. It's too bad that we can't get this program either taped. Hey, Dan, can we ever do this program in the afternoon as opposed to the morning? Is that something we can do?
Or in the evening?
Like during happy hour.
No, we have the slate with Pamela Broadcasting from 7 to 9 a.m.
That's it.
Yep.
They won't, no flexibility?
Oh, possibly.
So where we can...
Let me talk to these guys.
On a YouTube channel or something like that?
Yeah, we can advertise it and do it like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
or
7 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night.
Well, people are willing to listen to us.
This is a critical, for this area, this issue is at a crisis mode. And, the social infrastructure that we don't have right now is very, very important. So it should be discussed.
Is that something
by all means? Let's
maybe we can work at it, guys.
Yeah,
it would be nice because, like I said, the people who are listening now are those who are the eye openers.
Yeah, correct.
Up all night, and the people who aren't doing the drugs, the family members. Hopefully, I was thinking that it would be nice to reach parents, of young people who are looking for the signs that we talked about, but they're not maybe listening because they're on their way to work now.
Exactly.
And it would be great if we could do it. I don't know if we can pull it off, but we'll try. But
this one's going to be available like on your website, right?
Right. This is available, right, Dan? This is available to look. How do they find us?
Yes, it can be. No, I'm recording it now as usual, and today just look for Monday the 26th.
And where do they go?
YouTube, Kingston Community Radio.
Oh, that guy's
awesome. YouTube, Kingston Community Radio, and later on, Ed, just ask Lawrence, and he can make a thumb drive of it for you if you wanted it. Yes.
Okay. Maybe I can get your thumb drive.
This is this is a crisis situation.
You guys did a great job. I'd like to have you back another time. I'd like to continue to probe the recovery part of it, more and more. But I really like to be able to do it with at a different time, or maybe take these thumb drives and make copies.
Yeah,
and give them to people.
There's one more plug is heavypaw.com, the Hudson Valley young people in AA. And that's a group of young people that go around and do a lot of work to educate people and bring awareness to the community that young people.
What's it called?
Heavy Paw, Hudson Valley young people in AA. And heavypaw.com hosts a big bonfire.
You say heavy pod or pot?
Heavy Paw.
Yeah, no, I can never.
Not pot.
Not pot. Yeah, YPAW.
Happy pot.
Yeah. So YPAW and AA is a big part of our.
Guys, gentlemen, thanks so much for your time. You guys are great. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, and thank you, Dr. Ed Aleo, and a major thanks to Pat D. and Mike Enoch, AA, Al-Anon, NA, and Villa Veritas. And we thank you for being with us here at Kingston Community Radio. We're at the bottom of the hour now at KCR AM 920 and 92.5 FM and streaming online at mykcr.org. It's Monday, July 26, 66 degrees here in Uptown Kingston. And this last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Herzog's. Because the colors and quality of paint you choose matters, Herzog's Paint and Design Center, located in the Kingston Plaza, is there for you, offering the largest selection of Benjamin Moore paints and the area's most complete line of painting supplies. Herzog's Paint and Design Center also provides color samples from Benjamin Moore paints, including the eco-friendly Aaa line. Color decorating consultants and expert interior designers are ready to assist you in choosing the right colors. Visit Herzog's in the Kingston Plaza. Mid-Hudson Valley weather and forecast one more time. Today, some localities of dense fog this morning. Otherwise, partly cloudy with a high of 89. Tonight, clear skies, a low of 61. Tuesday, sunny along with a few afternoon clouds, a high of 89. And Tuesday night, 40% chance of a thunderstorm. In the evening with some showers overnight, low of 62. And Wednesday, a mix of sun and clouds. Stray shower or thunderstorm is possible Wednesday, a high of 78. Wednesday night, some clouds, low around 60. And we'll be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
I didn't think it was possible for me to be an alcoholic. I was 24 with a good career. I thought I was too smart and that alcoholism only happened to middle-aged men and celebrities. I thought something else was making me sick, shaky, and afraid to face people. Then I found AA and discovered it wasn't something else, it was alcohol. AA helped me find a new life. Alcoholics Anonymous. It works. Look us up. Check your phone book, newspaper, or AA.org.
Okay, forest animals, kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow, have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. River, how's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man.
I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. Okay. Squirrel.
The forest has been preparing just for you. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Scott Harrington from Hurley, and I support Kingston Community Radio because the people need a place to have their voice heard, and it's lost in corporate radio, so please keep listening and supporting our station.
And we're back, and you're with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, 7 to 9 a.m. 8:32 a.m., so we've got another half hour here of Medical Mondays here on WGHQ, AM 920, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. Monday, July 26th. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley and one near you. And let's get back to the on-air studio with Dr. Ed Aleo and our new guest. Welcome back.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that, partner. Well, I have a colleague of mine, Dr. Maureen Lynch Rinaldi, and she's an audiologist in the community. I've known Maureen for a long time. Maureen, first of all, thank you for coming.
Good morning, Ed. And, Dr. Aleo, nice to see you again.
We're glad to have you here. Dr. Lynch Rinaldi is an expert in a number of areas in audiology. So today we thought we would take a little look at children. It's an interesting topic. But first of all, tell us a little bit about your background, please.
Well, I've been at this for 31 years in the community here. I spent about 22 years at the Benedictine Hospital, directed audiology there. We had a fantastic speech and hearing department. We actually had developed a on-site service-based early intervention program for some time.
Excuse me, what's early intervention mean? for our
That is
listeners.
when we are identifying children very early so that we can start those interventions for communication, social, behavioral, physical therapy delays. So those kids are prepared between birth and 3 to get their services, and that at 3 to 5 we can get them into the school systems so that they can be prepared for kindergarten.
Were you also involved in the testing newborns?
Yes, it was a.
What's that about?
It's a 7-day-a-week program. Shortly before 2000, it was mandated that newborns would be screened before they left the hospitals. New York came in a little bit over 2000. There were some, like Rhode Island went in first, and they had a great program. So I decided that instead of waiting until it was mandated, that I wanted to get that program up and going. And so that meant every newborn that left our hospital was going to be screened with equipment that was able to test babies objectively to look for a echo from the cochlea, which is a portion of the nerve portion of the ear, just to simplify it, just to see if they had the anatomy that was working. It wasn't really a hearing test. It was saying your structures in your ear are functioning and should work. And we identified children early, and if we can get those hearing aids on by 6 months, you see a remarkable difference in development. So I was,
Outstanding.
I helped develop that program, and it became a passion. And a lot of hospitals had volunteers and nurses doing it, but I did it 7 days a week for many, many years because I really felt like...
Because babies don't wait for Monday through Friday?
Yeah, if you could have a baby born late on a Friday night, you might be able to skip Saturday and go in on Sunday instead. But its volumes dropped in the area, so there wasn't that high volume of births. And then, of course, with that drop in volume, you didn't have the necessity to be there every day. So you could do maybe one day on the weekend. So it worked out.
So after they were tested, just in infants for a second, after they were tested and you found that they might have a problem, was there a follow-up program?
Absolutely. As soon as possible. As soon as possible. Try to get them back post 7 days from discharge from the hospital. The biggest problem was not bringing back the people that might have not passed, whose infants may not have passed the screening. It was more difficult to get those families that were home births or that missed the screening altogether. It was those unknowns that were the most difficult to bring back in. And it took a while for the pediatric groups to get on board to make that referral mandate, to say you have to go back, we need this result. And then of course when it did become a mandate in New York State, it took a while for all those processes to get in place. But when New York started, now the birthplace, the hospital, if you were a home birth and your baby presented at the pediatrician's office for the first time, that became the home. And they were obligated now to report to the state those findings. So we were more easily, it was more easy to track at that point and to follow up.
So, so let's move to the next level of children here, and children with hearing loss, and I'm not necessarily talking about the deaf or the severely hard of hearing. I'm talking about the more simple things, the transient child who has, allergies or upper respiratory problems, and they have transient hearing reduction as opposed to hearing loss at certain times. And as a result, is their language sometimes affected? Are they delayed in their language development because of middle ear problems? I know that, I almost forgot to say, that you now are working, you're no longer in the hospital, you're working with an ENT office. Is that correct?
Yes, I was in a private practice, and we were recently acquired by Albany Medical Center. So we are Southern ENT, Albany Medical Center in Red Hook.
Oh, good for you. That sounds cool.
Our ENT there is Dr. Corpus, and we have a fabulous PA, Lauren Derlin, and our staff is supportive, and Albany has been welcoming. So we're hoping to be available to the community, because this is really a service that we don't have many docs down here.
You mean many ear, nose, and throat doctors?
Right, and the audiologist, I remember when audiology was very prominent in Kingston. You and I, and we had there were more audiologists here.
Now there's no one.
And we're not. There are one or two of us. Yeah.
One more topic. So just for our listeners, education-wise, the ear, nose, and throat physician, Dr. Corpus, he does his surgery where? Where does he do his surgery? In what surgeries does he do?
Well, he is now an associate professor with Albany Med. So wherever Albany wants him to be, he will be. But he does a lot of his surgeries at Columbia Memorial.
Really? Not at Northern Dutchess or Kingston?
When he was in private practice, he did not do any surgeries in Kingston. His services were primarily Northern Dutchess and CMH.
So we don't have any services for ear, nose, and throat, Dan. No services for ear, nose, and throat in the 3 hospitals around us.
I'm not sure about his affiliation now with Northern Dutchess, because of course that's a different hospital system. But he does a lot of in-office things, not for children though. He does his balloons. He's truly certified, which is a sinuplasty balloon procedure. So, but I do, and even with children now, being with a medical center and being with the hospital, it was much easier to test children. At this point, even in my office, it's difficult.
Because?
Because I'm by myself. Children, you have to gain rapport with them, and there's a different way of testing them. We use what's called visual operant response, which is sitting them and signaling a sound through sound field, through speakers, and then conditioning them with a puppet that plays or a television that plays. It's time-consuming, and it's difficult to train a parent to be that other professional in the booth when you really need 2 people. And it's just a time-consuming, frustrating thing, because parents are scared. When a parent brings a child in with a possibility of hearing loss, they're scared. And so you need a lot more time, which private practice in small offices does not allow.
Well, it's tough. So back to the children. So what is speech delay? Without talking about speech, what is the result of intermittent hearing loss, transient hearing loss from allergies or infections? What happens to those children?
Our foundation for hearing happens birth to 6 months. That's why we are so eager to see those children that have any type of congenital loss identified by 6 months. But then you have the children that have incidents of hearing loss. That can be middle ear infection, that can be an acquired loss, that can be transient fluid because of allergy. If you have a detriment to hearing during the critical points of development in your auditory system, you're looking at a child that will have academic challenges. You'll see delays in reading in 4th grade because they don't have that auditory processing, which is, you can have peripheral hearing, your ears are working, but by the time it gets to your brain, something has happened to that signal. The sounds that we make in speech. Most reading is done with phonics. Well, if a child can't identify clearly the difference between an an M, and an an N, met and net become 2 different words, and the meaning becomes very different. You also can't sound out words then for reading. So reading delays, academic challenges, you see it in math and sciences, because now you go from the math, the critical numbers, to word problems. Well, if you can't read the word problem, so it becomes difficult, and it's hard to identify. People aren't seeing it.
And also, a number of these children who have this transient hearing loss or middle ear problems, 50% of them, if I remember correctly, 50% have no pain, no fever. So you don't even know they have a problem. Exactly. And they don't talk. Some mother, really was a grandmother, contacted me recently, and she says, my sister's granddaughter is 2.5 years old, and I can't understand a word she says. I said, the kid's got a problem. If they're not talking by a year, they don't have words and they're not doing stuff, then you need to look at that. And some parents, and this obviously these parents sometimes, let me ask you, I think sometimes they are afraid to pursue the fact that their kid may have a problem, which, like you said, ends up being a reading problem, because if you can't hear vowel sounds, stuff like you just said. So why do people resist? Why do parents resist?
Oh, I think it's cultural in some aspects. And who wants to find out something that's wrong with their child?
Guilt?
Probably. Some of the hearing losses are congenital, happens at birth. Hereditary, did I give this to my child? The other thing is, when you're identifying a child at 5 years old, going into kindergarten, how long did they have it? What symptoms did I overlook? You feel bad. I know as a mom, I would feel bad. Like, so difficulty understanding. I thought all kids didn't speak like that. Parents with this is their first child may not know. So if pediatricians are not educating or doing those screenings, religiously on their annuals, they're missed.
And what about the fact that, parents will say, well, they have a sibling and the sibling talks for them? You ever heard that one?
Yeah, I have. And the other thing is, I would say, though, to that parent, so you have an example of what good hearing and good speech development is. Whether or not they're speaking for that child or not, your child should still be speaking. There's many signs. If you have difficulty understanding your child, if your child speaks differently than other children, is your child typically developing? If you call your child and they don't respond, and that's at a young age. At 6 months, your child should be aware of your voice. There should be a rudimentary head turn at least. If your child's sitting in front of the television 6 inches away and has the volume blaring, if they're speaking on a phone and they have to keep switching the ears, or if they say, I can't hear what Grandma's saying, I don't know. If they respond inappropriately, if they are pulling on their ears, or if they say, what are you saying? I didn't hear you. If you think they're constantly misbehaving because they don't listen to you, make sure that it's not their ears.
Or they're zoned out when you're talking to them. They don't pay attention to you. Is it that they're zoned out, or they just can't hear? Right?
Exactly.
Interesting. I think those are the things that elude parents, is the fact that they don't have the proper language at a certain age, or they don't. I mentioned someplace a while back that that two things happen. First of all, fathers are the least ones. No offense, Dad. I'm a dad. To pick up on the fact that their kid's not doing it. Mothers understand what children are saying, and nobody else does. That's an indication of a little speech problem. And they'll go, well, I can whisper to him, and he can hear. But when I talk to him, he doesn't respond. And I said, well, those are two different frequencies. When you have a stuffy ear, low pitches, like the father's voice, and especially if he's further away and not talking loud, the kid doesn't hear, especially if there's background noise. And the second thing, if you whisper, high frequency, sometimes they hear that. And they have transient problems. So, and the other part that I don't know what you think about this, they say, well, he just tunes me out. And I said, children don't tune out. Maybe adults do.
Take the screen away from them and then talk to them.
Yeah.
Take the iPad away, the phone away, and then speak to them and see if they're
tuned in or tuned out. That's a good point. I like that. So, what other symptoms do children or what other aspects of reduced hearing do you see? And how do we remediate it without a hearing aid, for example?
Oh, without a hearing aid.
Or with a hearing aid, I don't care.
Well, there's a degree of loss. Like you said, you're not necessarily talking about the deaf child. The CDC has reported that 1 to 3 in every 1,000 children are hearing impaired. That's a lot of kids.
1 to 3. That is a lot of kids. What's that mean?
And that between 1 and 3 children out of every 1,000 born have some type of hearing loss. I think that one of my struggles when I was working closely with pediatrics is that minimal loss. You do not have to have a significant hearing loss to have problems developing language, reading, academic skills, auditory processing. Minimal loss is your upper levels of normal. And it's critical that children have this because we test in quiet primarily. Throw that kid in a classroom, they're going to lose their understanding because there's background noise. The teacher's generally speaking at a distance. And more importantly, the biggest thing they lose is incidental learning because of the hearing loss. So it's great that the teacher's aware of a hearing loss or a minimal loss and raises her voice. But that little voice in the classroom that asks the question, if the child didn't hear the question, the answer really doesn't have much importance. So we have to look at the whole environment, in a school particularly. The struggle with pediatricians years ago, I can't speak for that now. You'd have minimal loss and they'll be like, it's okay. No, it's not. Not in the classroom. Then you have the child with one good ear and one ear that could be completely deaf or severely impaired. It's okay because they got one good ear. Would you say that to a child who has like one poor eye? We're not going to take care of it?
Good point.
You need 2 ears to develop.
And you need 2 ears because, if just to add a little bit here, if you have one ear, you can't hear in background noise. No. You can't localize. So any room noise, they're in trouble. Yeah. They can't tell. Right. Dan's over there.
Directionality. You don't have directionality.
Directionality is off big time. So it's and I don't think people understand that. And it's naive for physicians at any level to say that's normal. It's not so bad. He'll get better. And if he's not talking at 18 months, he's just a late talker. I mean, who even says that? A late talker, I think that's that definitely discounts the child's development by doing that kind of thing or saying those things. Because I had a kid who didn't talk, not me, until he was 18 months, he did really well. Well, that's rare. That's really rare. If a child's not talking, like you said earlier, by a year plus, have words, and then they're in trouble. What do you think?
I think that pediatricians have come a long way. I think by virtue of audiology, basically, our reaching out to them and our education to them that it's important, at least in this area. I think that the schools could probably do somewhat of a better job. I don't remember. School was a long time ago, but PL 94. I do remember that law, and I thought that there were some guidelines about specific hearing screenings during school at certain ages and grade levels. I'm not seeing that. I'm not getting that report from parents, and I think that the schools, you have those kids. You have them for 8 hours a day. You have them captured. How nice it would be to have hearing screenings, and if the nurse can't do it, bring in a professional to do it. Screening only takes a minute, and I think that if we address early the funds that we save in the future, you're talking about children that need early individual education programs to address these hearing losses. Those are a fight.
I think you made a good point about minimal hearing loss. They don't have to have big hearing losses that are noticeable by everybody. They just need to be screened more often by the pediatrician, which doesn't happen too often, and by the schools. And I don't remember that. I know I used to screen at schools at one time just to help out. And I used to promote this thing called tympanometry, which is, I know you know what it is, I'm just saying for the listeners. So that they could take 20 seconds an ear and find out if that middle ear, the eardrum and the bones behind the ear are functioning. If they have fluid in their ear, you can tell immediately. So if they have fluid in there, they have that minimal hearing loss plus then, and they can't hear. all day long. And the interesting part about this is that it might be transient. It could be okay for this week, and then next week they have reduction, so they don't learn to read so well. You think that's true?
Absolutely, absolutely. The brain is learning so quickly when we're young, and the auditory system does not mature until you're about 12. So your auditory system is maturing that whole time. When we do processing testing, we're looking at normative data. Really not until you're 7. The good normative data that says that, we've got some good testing and good results of how a child should be processing speech and auditory signals. The normative data starts at 7, and at 12 we're finally using adult normative data.
A little late, huh?
Yeah.
For a 7-year-old, a little late.
Yeah. So we've got to look before that.
There's simple things, simple testing. I don't really know if the schools test or not. Do you know, Dan?
I don't think, like now, I don't think that they're screening or testing for hearing. I do remember it in my elementary school.
Yeah. Kindergarten, you're going in, your general testing for getting into kindergarten, and naturally your annual physicals in the pediatrician's office. Although those are a little bit odd too, because you're talking about a young child and the beeps are so quick. Raise your hand when you hear the beeps and it goes beep, 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 and the kids, it's not the kind of slow testing that we need so that you have an accurate response. And kids want to please.
Yeah, of course.
So kids are going to raise their hand sometimes whether they hear it or not.
I remember when I used to lecture, I taught in my first career for a couple of years, and one of the things I would say is when you have a 3-year-old or 4-year-old and you say, raise your hand when you hear that beep, beep tone, they have to decide on whether they hear it when they really like it or if they just hear it when it's tiny, teeny, tiny, or something in between. So you don't know what their reference level is, so you get a false result.
We rely on speech thresholds then. You kind of go in and...
What speech threshold? What are those?
That's when you can go... I rely on that a lot. For the child that, you cannot train to raise their hand or put the block in the bucket when they hear the beep. If you put headphones on a child and you say something like, "Where's mommy?" and of course your equipment can then adjust the volume that you're going into. If they're responding to "Where's mommy?" or "Show me your shoes" or "Touch your nose" at 5 dB, which is well within normal, I can comfortably say that the critical speech range, that range what they need for at least voice and speech development, is within normal. If I go in at 15 and I'm not even getting their attention, I begin to get worried. Yeah. And if they're not responding at 25...
15 some people think is normal, and it's not. That's the minimal hearing loss.
That's minimal.
There are studies out there says if a child has a 15 dB hearing loss or 20 dB, which is still pretty small to some people,
it's 10 times.
And this is intermittent over 3 months, that they're at danger for having speech delay and speech problems down the road, and learning problems. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The testing with raising your hand, I think that is very, very rudimentary, and perhaps I do see the exact frequency necessity, using a sine wave, but it could be how many of them are there. Could you do 3?
What do you think?
Could you do 2?
Dr.
Could you do 1?
Rinaldi?
With the frequencies?
How many kids are out there with delayed or intermittent transient hearing losses, and what's the effect?
Well, I think that we can't come up with a number. Because if I test, and I tell parents this, I can do a really good, solid, reliable test and say to mom, hearing's within normal, we got normal tympanometry, but there's a history of ear infections, there's a history of allergy, there's a history of transient, so guess what? You could go home, and in 2 hours, your kid could have fluid and hearing loss. The fluid moves in the body, so.
So the bottom line is, if they do have that transient hearing loss, should they be seen routinely?
Regularly.
You follow up? How regular?
I say every three months, or if there's a noticeable change, if they begin tugging on their ears, if there's any behavioral symptoms, or if parental concerns dictate.
So
mom knows many times.
They could at least do that tympanometry you talked about, which takes a couple seconds, right? In and out of the office.
Insurance covers it.
There you go.
Yeah, it's worthwhile.
Well, listen, Dr. Lynch, Rinaldi, you did a great job. You'll have to come back again and talk to us more about other kinds of hearing loss. Would you do that?
I certainly would. There's so
Dan?
much more to talk about.
Yeah, there is a lot to talk about. What do you think, Dan?
Well, we better give it back to Pamela Broadcasting in a few minutes with Magic 92.5. Thank you for being with us tonight and today and this morning. It's 7 to 9 a.m. And it is Monday, July 26th, and it's 8:59 a.m., 66 degrees here in Uptown Kingston. And this last portion of Kingston Community Radio has been brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley, one near you. Again, thank you for sharing the morning with us and participating in Kingston Community Radio, KCR AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org, 7 to 9 a.m. every weekday. And tune in to us tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. for a terrific Tuesday. And we very, very much thank our guests today, Pat and Mike and Dr. Lynch Rinaldi. Thank you so much for being with us. And until tomorrow morning, we wish you every success in growing and developing Kingston and all our neighboring communities. This last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. We now return you to Magic 92.5.